Greetings and salutations, artisans. This is Wolfphototech, and here we go with another Paizo unboxing video and review and overview. And this time it's the first edition Pathfinder Beginner Box. As I stated before, generally there is a pattern with Paizo products as they get new, as the beginner boxes get newer and newer. There is more and more refinement in them, but they are generally always high quality beginner boxes, especially compared to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. As you can see, this is a fairly chunky box. It's the Essentials box for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition next to the Pathfinder 1st edition box. As you can see, it's still pretty chunky. They're about the same width. And the Essentials box is slightly taller, and slightly wider by ever so slight. I mean like a slight. But it's substantially heavier, literally just because Paizo likes to cram so much stuff into their boxes. So how I'm going to start this is I'm going to get my Traveler case, my slipcase for Traveler 5, and stand it up. Take that, tilt it down, and end up cutting the top of my head off and remove the top of the box. Good white treated inside cardboard box. And as you can see, it comes with dice. One small note, it's all red dice, and it's only the bare minimum number of dice is to play Pathfinder. So, small knock right there. It's not a full set. It's not it's a full set, but it is just not enough. It's not enough dice is to easily play quickly. It would always be nice to have 4 d6s and 2 d20s, or actually just 4 d6s in this set, just so you can roll Fireball much quicker. You got your pawn bases. I had to be careful with this box because I actually have punched out the pawns. So you end up with the whole problem with get a bunch of pawn pieces out. There is a little advertisement card for for a app for Pathfinder 1st edition. I don't even know if it's still around. There is a little welcome sheet. It's blank on the back side. So far, if you've watched the Pathfinder 2nd edition and Starfinder video, you'll notice that there's already a difference between this box and the other one. There's not as many cards, and the dice are not color-coded. There is a transition guide that helps you transition from the game and the system before this, which was Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, to Pathfinder 1st edition. It teaches you a bit about the adjustments in the rule system and the world of Galeria. I actually tried to make this video once before, and I kept saying Glorantha, which is the world setting for RuneQuest, which at some point I will cover. But anyways, here's Converting Adventures, to convert your adventures from the... Converting Adventures, and so forth. And then it also shows off some Pathfinder 1st edition books in there. So it's a handy dandy conversion, plus show you some books you might want to buy. And then we go into the Heroes. I had to turn it up because it's all books. The Heroes Handbook. This book much like the other books from the other beginners sets, have on the inside cover a letter number sequence system that tells you how to build your character. Not a strict system, but this is the sequence of actions you do to build your character. Here is a solo adventure, so you understand the nature of play for Pathfinder First Edition. And it goes through various numbers. It's like choose your own adventure. Then there's an example of play right here. And then it gets into getting started, rules and basic rules for playing, and how to use your dice rules and stuff like that. How to do dice rolls. Then it goes into the Heroes Handbook section, talking about the various races. They haven't yet to switch over from races to ancestries. And then it pops into Cleric level class, Cleric. Here's the start of Cleric. It goes over Cleric and deities and what spells you can learn for the first few levels, up to 5th level. And then jumps into Fighter, then Rogue, then to Wizard. So you only have 4 classes up to level 5. The 2 spellcaster classes are quite meaty. It goes into finishing your character. It explains here all the skills, or at least a good chunk of them. It's a fairly large section because Pathfinder First Edition is based largely off of Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. And then it goes into Feats. Yeah, this is Feats. I rolled into Feats without noticing I rolled into Feats. Yeah, that's the beginning of Feats right there. Interestingly enough, they have the monk right there, even though it's not included in the starter set or the beginner set. Then you have magical. Then you have equipment. You keep going. You got some armor. You got adventuring items. Playing the game. Combat instruction. Guide on combat. This is all well written out and explained in here. Actually, far better than anything that Wizards of the Coast has ever done with 5th edition. The core rulebook, which contains the core rulebook for Pathfinder First Edition is essentially a player's handbook with basic game master section in it and a basic monster manual in it. So there's the Heroes book. And then you have the Game Master Guide, which is actually, in reality, not a Game Master Guide, but it has a little bit of Game Master Guide. In the front of the book, there's a section on basic mechanics that the Game Master has to be aware of. It immediately jumps to the adventure, the really short adventure in this beginner box, which I'm going to skip over now because I'm not going to give away the adventure. It's a really short adventure. And then you go into the Game Master section of the book, where it teaches you about common terms that are used in TTRPGs, how to run a session, how to take notes, how to do this, how to do tracking, pacing in the game, building an adventure, environment. It all breaks it down into building an adventure, environment, magic items, monsters, Sandpoint, which is actually a setting in here, and conditions. So you pop through there. There's old-fashioned style dungeon map. It goes through encounters, how to do some basic work on them. Your social encounters, your world building, treasure, adding details to the environment, dungeon terrain. It goes the environment section, dungeons, breaking objects, walls, floors, doors, stairs, traps. There's also a hazardous items, forest terrain, swamp terrain, mountain terrain, desert terrain. This is actually a really good foundation book for new game masters. City adventures, rooftops. You know, you're in a city. You're going to go onto a rooftop at some point if you hang out in cities enough. Environmental hazards. Then you get into magic items, which is quite a cool section in itself. I had to keep pumping along because I'm barely even started into this thing. It keeps going into magic items. Pathfinder has a wealth of magic items and advice on awarding and balancing magic items for campaigns in 1st edition and 2nd edition. You got a section on monsters. You actually have a nice collection of monsters. A good variety for a broad range of situations and environments. This beginner box has a nice collection, as I said. There's a total of 6 bestiaries for Pathfinder 1st edition. The Pathfinder 1st edition bestiaries are also compatible with Pathfinder 2nd edition. And you can also use Pathfinder 2nd edition bestiaries with 1st edition. With some small adjustments, but they're like small. It's almost irrelevant level of adjustments. Random encounter section. You got a table for dungeon monsters, forest monsters, swamp monsters, mountain monsters, desert monsters, city monsters, or city combat encounters. You got the setting, Sandpoint, the region around Sandpoint, the Sandpoint Hitherlands, additional quest, references for spell casting, areas of effect, how to flank properly here, has common common skill DCs section over here. You have a nice little section on conditions, 2 pages worth. On the back here, you got the index, handy dandy index. You always want to index. You also have a list over here of some of the basic books you might want to invest in for Pathfinder 1st edition, as well as a suggested key for dungeon maps or environment maps. That way you know, oh, that's a sinkhole when you see that. That's a stalagmite. That's a stalactite. Campfire. A pillar. A well. You know, so forth. Secret trapdoor. Trapdoor floor. And so forth. And on the very back, there is also a little reminder section of basic sequence, common conditions, the most common conditions you are going to be hit with, and a reminder on how to flank and how to aim or direct attacks at opponents. So that's a handy dandy book. By the way, for fantastic reference, this book is 96 pages long. It's actually 98 pages. Spelljammer for 5th edition has 3 books. Each book is 64 pages, which comes out to 192 pages. The 2 books in this starter set is actually almost equivalent to the entire slipcase is for Spelljammer for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, for a reference. You have some character sheets. As I stated before when I was flipping through the Heroes Handbook, they have instructions that are all letter coded, that letter and number coded, that actually you can follow along. And you also happen to have the dice and some basic information on this spine here that allows you to easily cross-reference what you're doing with your character. So you have all the essential information marked out that correlates to the Heroes Handbook. It's all very well organized, used for a broad range of options in play. Now you just heard a sound because that happens to be the sound under the pawns slipping in the case. But here's the special little folios that show you the 4 classes that are included in the beginner box, and also a little section on the iconic characters on the back that are on the front, and the basic instructions to build the iconic characters tied into the letter system and some information here and there explaining how they're built with all their stats and everything. You got the Cleric, Kira, the Fighter, Valros, the Rogue, Mercial, and the Wizard, Zerd Ezrin. That's included in this book. Boop, boop, boop. Now this is going to get to be the messy part now. Right here is the messy part. The flip mat. Paizo makes literally the best flip mats around. They're actually made quite durable, and you could write or mark on them with dry erase or wet erase markers. In this one, you have the map for the adventure that's included, as well as a generic brown floor or brown grid for universal reasons. Okay, now to the complicated part. These guys are called pawns, and they're handy dandy. They're cheap. Paizo produces a lot of pawn boxes, and these are cheap and great way to set up monsters on a battlefield on their little bases. And the bases, you've got multiple sizes of bases, by the way. You got the regular small size, the 5-footers, and the 10x10s. So you can take your beloved werewolf and you just slot him in, and you got yourself a pawn that you can set it on the battlefield. If you really wanted to, you could say you can stick him in a bigger pawn on base and say he's an extra large, or he's a large werewolf. Now this is the fun part, because now all these pawns are actually covering a sheet in the back of this case. And I would love to be able to just show you. Incidentally, these are punched out. Oops. But they sit in. Yeah. They're punched out already, but I've just managed to stick them inside. So I'm not going to screw around with that too much. But then here's this little last sheet right here. That is an advertisement for the Pathfinder Society. And it also has, on the back side, advertisement for the core rule book and the setting book, as well as the bestiary. So it's actually quite nice. Now back to putting everything back in. She just fell in. Put the 2 sheets back in here. Dump all the pawns back in. Incidentally, I have to remind everyone and point it out that the artwork for Pathfinder is actually quite nice. Sorry if it's a little blurry. It's getting later in the evening, and it's getting a little dark. But you have a nice variety of creatures in this starter beginner box, like spiders and all this stuff. All the stuff you saw in the Game Master box, in the Game Master section. A gargoyle. You got 3 different large monsters or boss monsters in here too. Put that back in there. Put that back in there. Now, as I do this, I'm going to go into the grading section. This is for Pathfinder First Edition. This is like if you never played Pathfinder First Edition and you can find this cheap, or even like in that sub $50 range, this is definitely worth buying. This is awesome. As far as starter beginner boxes are concerned, it's not the greatest, but it certainly is so much superior to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition in quality as far as starter boxes. Where did that go? Oh. Yeah, as I said, that's a blank side, so I kind of like missed on that one. This beginner box is not as high quality as the later ones, but it's still a really good one. Paizo typically only produces one type of beginner box per their game system, so there will not be an updated version of this. There will not be an updated version of Starfinder or Pathfinder 2nd Edition unless they create a new edition for those games, say like Starfinder 2nd Edition, which I do not know why they would go ahead and do a Starfinder 2nd Edition. It might be interesting if they went and did a modern era type tabletop role-playing game, kind of like their equivalent of Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green, where instead of being in medieval times, fantasy, or in the future, it is like right now, and there are monsters, but they're people living in the world, and they got cars and trains and planes and stuff like that. So that would be interesting. I just don't know. They keep going with the Finder name with Finder at the end. So Modern Finder, Society Finder. I don't know if they might ever go with a war game and call it War Finder. I think they tried to go with at one point Paizo, I do believe, tried to start into like a war game, and I think it was called Pathfinder Battles, but I think it didn't get it terribly far off the ground, and that just kind of just morphed into their miniature line with WizKids. But anyways, they have a card game. I do say that this is actually still a darn good beginner box, and as far as quality is concerned, the only thing I could knock against it is literally just I would like 3 more D6s. It would be nice that they had the player reminder action cards, like out of Starfinder and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And I would wish that they would actually put a DM screen or Game Master screen in these boxes. But it's sort of the modern thing of people getting away from using Game Master screens. And if you are playing online and you're going off of this, using this as a tool set on your table, and you're talking to players over Zoom or Discord, having a Game Master screen is completely irrelevant because the camera is your screen. So this is like a 4. A 4 or 3.75. Yeah, this is 3.7. Pathfinder First Edition is Dungeons and Dragons 3.75, and it also gets the beginner box gets a score of 3.75 stars to 4 stars. And the reason why it doesn't get anything better than 4 stars is because I've already seen the evolution of improvement that goes into Starfinder in the box, and the improvement in Pathfinder 2nd Edition in the beginner box. And if they had a lot of the efficiency mechanics and items that they then included in later editions in this box, it would be a whole lot better. Pathfinder 2nd Edition box is just amazing. Pathfinder 1st Edition box is really good. It's just, it could be better. This is awesome, but it can always be better. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on it and consider subscribing, and tell me in the comments below what you like about my channel or any of my videos and any suggestions you have. If you dislike my video, please still consider subscribing to my channel. That way you get to make fun of me and mock me in the comments. And hit that dislike button. And there you go. Thank you very much for watching. Have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time.